Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Samira. I'm so glad to have you here. This is just my little corner on the internet to share my love for books as well as a sprinkling of K-pop every now and then. And you can find me on here and also of course on Instagram and Twitter. I'm starting to get more active on Instagram, so definitely check me out there. Today's video is something I'm very excited about. I was very much in my romance era last year. I read so many good romance books, and you know, if you're like me and your only plans for Valentine's Day are just to stay home and probably read a romance book, then you've come to the right place. So in the spirit of Valentine's Day, or just in general, I wanted to share my favorite romance books of all time. Again, like a lot of these I read last year and you'll hear me talk about them in my previous videos, but some of these are also oldies but goodies. And they're also going to be ranging from little to no spicy to very extremely spicy, so there's something for everyone, as well as romance books and also books featuring romance. So a little bit of everything for everyone. So without further ado, let's get into it. So again, like I said, I'm going to be spreading them out between little to no spicy to extremely spicy because again, I know not a lot of people are very comfy with spicy. Some people like having a lot of spicy, so you know, just a little bit for everyone. And I tend to have trust issues when it comes to people saying how little or how much spice there is in a book, so this is my personal rating and I hope that this would be helpful for some of you. I'm gonna start with like the least spicy, a little to no spicy, and the first one would be something that I read last year and I didn't think I would enjoy, but I actually had such a fun time. Had me kicking, screaming, giggling, butterflies all over, and that's Wotakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku. This is a manga, unlike all of the other books I'm gonna mention in this video. It's just so adorable. It has childhood friends to lovers, it has enemies to lovers, and also friends to lovers, so it has a little bit of everything for everyone. I myself am an enemies to lovers enthusiast, so of course I have that going for me, but again, it's such a cute read, so wholesome. It's also featuring gamers, so all of our characters love to play video games, and that's very evident in the way that the manga is written, the way it's designed, and it's kind of designed like a video game. I love that so much. It's so different from anything else I've ever read. I know it's still ongoing, which is a good thing, and yeah, I just had such a fun time. It's so wholesome, so cute. It's such a fun read, such a fast read too, so if you want a romance to read that's gonna give you such a fun time, good vibes all over, definitely check that one out. The next one I have is a book that's featuring romance, not necessarily full-on romance, but that could be argued, and it's also a sci-fi book, and I mentioned this in my favorites of last year video if you watched that already. Next one is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Mohtar and Max Gladstone. Again, if you've heard me talk about this, you know I've been raving about it. This is very much enemies to lovers because again, they are on opposite sides of a time war. Unlike anything I've ever read, so good. If you love the angsty enemies to lovers romance, this is definitely the one for you. The next one is also one I mentioned. Again, a lot of these I'm gonna have mentioned before because I just adore these, but this next one is a historical romance that has romance as the main theme throughout. This is The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. Again, so incredibly good. If you love that angsty type of romance that has the right person, wrong time trope, unconditional love, just angsty, slow burn, everything, this is the one for you. So incredibly good. The writing itself is so lyrical and just adds to the angst. If you're not looking for a cutesy romance but a very angsty one, this is definitely for you. The next one is a oldie but a goodie, and it just would be a disservice to not mention this, and this is The Wrath in the Dawn trilogy by Renee Ahdieh. This is a retelling of 1001 Nights. Again, oldie but a goodie, but it does the job well, and yeah. To build off of that, The Wrath in the Dawn walked so that this next book could win the marathon, run laps around everyone else, and that's We Hunt the Flame duology. Especially We Free to Start, the second book. Oh my god. That's by far the best YA couple I've ever read. The writing just, again, adds to the romance. It's enemies to lovers, excellent. What I love about it, the writing style alone is very indicative of Arabic, Persian poetry, especially love poetry. That's just very angsty, very dramatic, very deep, and it's just Chef's kiss. If you have not read that duology, I truly do not know what you're doing with your life. This is your sign to read that. But again, this is a book, obviously, that's fantasy. You see my shrine up there, rightfully so. This duology is just everything butters my croissant in the best way possible. Like I mentioned, this is a fantasy series that has romance tied in throughout. It's definitely more prevalent in the second book, but again, does not take away from the fantasy, just if anything builds onto it, and just so incredibly good. So good. Next one is one that is severely underrated. Hardly anyone talks about this book, and that's a crime in itself, and that's The Trouble with Hating You by Sajni Patel. This was like the start of my science romance era. And I say that because this was the first time I've seen myself somewhat represented in a romance, and that just did me so many favors. It made me feel so seen, so validated. And essentially we're following this biochemical engineer, which me and myself, I'm a biomedical engineer, so you know, similarities. And her family's been trying to do an arranged marriage for her, which she is not about. And her company is about to tank, so they have to take on this law firm to help them. She has a wrong impression first meeting with this one lawyer as part of the law firm, and little does she know that this is the guy they've been trying to set her up with. So of course there's so many things going on that's just telling her not to pursue this, and it's just classic enemies to lovers, classic just feelings growing over time, and like definitely growing from friends into lovers as well. It's so good. So good. It does a great job, just everything you could ever want in a romance. It also has a sequel, which I have not gotten to yet, but I need to remedy that. But yes, we love seeing scientists having a chance at romance, you know. And with that, we're kind of delving into baby steps of spice, and I emphasize baby steps because we're not talking about extreme spicy. We're like dipping our toes in, you know, and it just gradually, slowly increases as the list goes on, so keep that in mind. Next is another one that a lot of people are on the fence about, but this author gets me. You know, she gets me, and that's People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I'm, like I said, more of an enemies to lovers enthusiast, and this book did not change my outlook on friends to lovers per se, but it did help me realize why I enjoyed it so much in this book and why it typically just does not do it for me. And that's because this book establishes platonic love between the two characters, so that already gives such a strong emotional foundation, and it just grows into romantic love from there. And I've found that typically with friends to lovers romance, we see that typically the guy does not acknowledge the girl's existence, especially growing up, until they get older, and suddenly he's like, oh, I didn't realize that I wanted to pursue anything with you. And all of a sudden it's like a light bulb goes off, and I'm like, where was this energy before, sir? Like, I cannot have you being wishy-washy on me. That's why I love this book so much, because it did not do that. It did quite the opposite, and I just love how we get to see their friendship grow as the book goes on. It truly lived up to the hype for me. It was so incredibly good. I hope we can get an adaptation of this soon. I would love that. I would eat it up. If you've been kind of on the fence about this book, especially because it's been so hyped up lately, I'd definitely say give it a try, because I myself was very terrified and I ended up loving it. So what more do I need to say? Another book that was also a stroke of pure genius was none other than You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel. This does not get any more enemies to lovers, if I do say so myself. And it's following two fiancés who are months out from their wedding, and they absolutely despise each other. They hate each other's guts. They want nothing to do with each other. And I'm like, we could have made this book like 10 pages long, considering how much it was portrayed that they hate each other throughout the beginning of the book. Like, I almost gave up, because I'm like, what's the point? Girly, practice self-love, just let it go. It was so incredibly well done, so well executed, and I just could not believe that by the end of the book I was obsessed. I did not feel as though it was rushed at all. It just shows how communication is the key to any relationship, and that was like the prime example of communication done right can do so much good for you. If you do give it the chance, like, just Have some patience with it. It definitely takes some time, but so worth it. Continuing my emergence of the science romance era, which I feel as though was written specifically for me. And that's The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. It does get to be very sciencey, but again, it's a science romance for a reason. It's basically a dating platform that tries to find your soulmate on the most minuscule biological level. Which again, that sounds very sciencey, very nerdy, but that book was genuinely so fun. I did not expect to have such a good time with it, and I think that's probably, arguably, one of Christina Lauren's best books. So incredibly good, and I just had such a fun time reading it. So our main character, for funsies, for kicks and giggles, she decides to participate in this dating platform just to see, because she's like, girlies like us, like there's no hope for us out there. And she and the CEO of the company, they end up having the highest compatibility percentage ever in the company's history. And of course, with that comes the fake dating trope, having to kind of establish how successful this relationship was in order to help boost the company before the official launch of the company. And of course, with time, the fake dating develops real feelings with both of the characters. But again, what I love is that it's not insta-love in that sense, because they very much start to question whether their feelings are genuine or if it's because of the circumstances surrounding their relationship, if that's why they're starting to grow feelings for each other. So that's what I love, because it kind of challenges the foundation of said relationship, trying to determine whether they actually truly feel this way, whether they actually are indicative of their match score. And I just love that so much. And it's a slow burn as well. So again, enemies to lovers, fake dating, slow burn, trying to determine whether their feelings are actually genuine or not, and just developing into this beautiful thing. And I just, yeah, so incredibly good. So good. I had such a fun time reading it. And again, I think it's one of the best Christina Lauren books that they've ever come out with. And I stand by that statement. So if you haven't read it, I think you should definitely give it a try. I've been using that as manifestation fuel for myself, so yeah. And continuing on, the cherry on top of this science romance era of mine, this is just the beginning, I feel. Truly the best science romance I have ever read so far in my life is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood and Emily Henry were put on this earth to write romances specifically for me, and I could not be happier. I thank them, bless them, I will appreciate them forever and ever. I'm sure we are all familiar with The Love Hypothesis, but this is fake dating excellence. This is academic romance excellence, science romance excellence, and just, yeah, it's that book. It's that book. And again, it's a very hyped up book, but this is one of the rare books that I have ever read that truly lived up to the hype and even went beyond the expectations that I had, and just so incredibly good. Every person I've recommended this book to, they finished in one day. I have had a 100% success rate in recommending this book, so I hope that translates to you if you haven't read it yet. I cannot wait for more romance books from her. She gets me. She gets me. I am fully aware that we are in February. It is no longer Christmas time, but you know, who says that you can't read a Christmas romance in February? It's still cold outside. It still counts. This next one is The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. This is, okay, if you're looking for a short banger of a romance book that features enemies to lovers, it has the trope that they really like each other online and know each other really well online, but they hate each other in real life and don't realize they're the same person that they're talking to, this is the one for you. And it's also a bookstore romance, in the sense that these two both work at a bookstore. Our main character, Gabby, absolutely loves Christmas time. She has a Christmas spirit, is so fun and joyful the entire time. Meanwhile, we have our love interest Jonathan Frost, Jack Frost. You see where we're going with this? He's the complete opposite, absolutely hates Christmas. And you see we have the perfect foundation for an enemies to lovers romance. And the fact that online they bond over romance books. We love a man who loves romance, and I'm just, yeah, such a banger. Hit all the right notes. If you're looking for something new, which also I feel as though it's very underrated as well, I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about it, so definitely check that one out because truly a banger. Okay. Next, we have one that will not be coming out until March 1st, so you heard it here first. You need to pick this book up because rare instance that the second book is better than the first. Yes, I said that. But this is Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. Again, another Friends to Lovers that I devoured, absolutely ate up, enjoyed so much last year, and I'm still in the afterglow. I read this back in August, September, still in the afterglow of that book. It's just Friends to Lovers excellency. So incredibly good. The platonic love, again, is established here, and it just continues to grow. And just the angst in this one also. The angst in this one had me dying. I finished this book in one day. I could not get enough of it. So March 1st, please go pick this up. You will not regret it. I promise you. I will be mentioning the first book later on in this list. But yeah. Yeah, if you somehow did not like the first book, definitely pick this book up because it's leaps and bounds so much better. And considering how much I love the first book, that's how you know. That's how you know. Again, Emily Henry gets me. And this next one is Beach Read by Emily Henry. And I myself am in my second semester of grad school, and I'm still very much fantasizing that academic rivals to lovers situation. I don't know how that would work because I'm attending online, but you know, it's the thought that counts. You know, it's the thought that counts. I just need some academic rivals to lovers to fuel my feelings, you know? And I had been hearing whisperings about this book that it had academic rivals to lovers. I have trust issues when it comes to people recommending romances because again, like there have been some times where I've just been completely let down. So this is the year of me like reading stuff to come up with my own opinions about them. But this book lived up to those claims and it was just so incredibly good. We have January Andrews, who is a romance writer, a hopeless romantic in every sense of the word. And then we have on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have Augustus Everett, who loves writing true crime, thriller novels. They attended college together and absolutely hated each other. And somehow over the course of one summer, they cross paths again and they have the brilliant idea to challenge each other to write novels in their respective genres. And to quote the iconic movie A Walk to Remember, Augustus Everett says, "Promise me you won't fall in love with me." Sir, you cannot be making claims like that. You already know what's up, sir. I ate that book up. Again, I read it, I'm pretty sure, in one day as well. And I will pick up anything that Emily Henry writes. And I just, yeah, she does it for me every time. She gets me. But again, with this romance, it also has a lot of other elements. It deals with grief, handling grief as well, but I would not say it takes away from the romance and vice versa. And I just feel as though it's such a solid romance, so incredibly well done, so well written, especially the way that Emily Henry develops relationships between the characters. I just feel as though that the chemistry between her characters is just so well executed, and it's not like a complete 180, because there are some times where we have characters who go from enemies to lovers and it's just like a flip of the switch, whereas this one, it definitely grows in that direction as the book goes on. So I feel as though it's a very organic development from enemies to lovers. So that's why I just love that book so much. I'm probably gonna reread all of her books this year. I would not put it past me. I love her book so much. Now we're getting into the gradually getting more spicy as we go along. It's like intermediate spicy. And as the list goes on, it goes like to completely sinful. So keep that in mind. Next we have the first book of Hook, Line, and Sinker, and that's It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I adored this book so much. Just to tell you, I read that book twice in 1 week. Character development did it for me, and also the enemies to lovers. Of course, again, we know I'm an enemies to lovers enthusiast, so we are not surprised by how many enemies to lovers romances are in this list. It's also popular girl, small town guy. The character development was just so good. So good. And I'm a sucker for a good character development within a book, and that did it for me. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. That book did it for me. But again, somehow, with as much as I loved that book, hook, line, and sinker still took the cake for me. So again, if you are one of those people for some reason did not like It Happened One Summer, I would still recommend checking out Hook, Line, and Sinker, because it proved that you don't need all the spice that It Happened One Summer did in order to develop and have a strong romance between two characters. So regardless, I still loved It Happened One Summer, still one of my favorite romances ever, and I would love to see a rom-com adaptation of these two books. I would just be insufferable. I would be yelling it from the rooftops, manifesting it, so I'm hoping one day it'll happen. And then next, again, another hyped up series, but definitely lives up to the hype, is the Brown Sisters trilogy. They're not new here to this channel because I am not shy when it comes to expressing my love for this trilogy. And each book in that series has a different trope, I would say. Every single book in that series, there's a book for someone, if that makes sense. But we have enemies to lovers and friends to lovers, and it's just so good. It's so good. And I am just eagerly awaiting new stuff from Talia Hibbert. I need more from her because I marathoned those 3 books, I think within a week, 2 weeks, and I do not regret. I do not regret. The only regret I think I would have is that I finished them too fast. I finished them way too fast, and once I finished them, I did not know what to do with my life for the next month or so. So yeah, those books did it for me. If you haven't read them yet, I would definitely say they live up to the hype, so fear not, you're in good hands. So good. So another one for my friends to lovers enthusiasts, we have Go Deep by Rosie Adams. This is another really quick, short read, and again, we have the established platonic love that just grows into romance in a very organic way. And basically we have this romance author, smutty author, and she has hit a rut in her writing and she needs inspiration, and her good childhood best friend comes along to lend a helping hand. So yeah, that's basically what the book is about. It's a spicy fun time, short time, but a banger nonetheless. Again, if you need a short, quick read that's a banger, this one, she did what she needed to do. This series, specifically this duology that I'm talking about, is one I have not seen anywhere. Like, I have been on Bookstagram for like 6 years. I have not seen anyone talk about this series. I feel as though people need to read these books more because I genuinely have not heard anyone talk about this series, and that's the Checkmate series. The 2 books I'm talking about specifically are Checkmate, This Is War, and Checkmate, This Is Love. It has like the added flavor of being enemies to lovers, but they were childhood best friends, and something went amiss and they ended up hating each other's guts until a turn of events happened over spring break during college. What gets more flavorful than that, you know? It has the angst, it has the hatred, it has the growing love, it has the denial. And again, it's such a crime that no one talks about this series. Again, this is a 6-book series, but it's split into pairs. The reason why I'm only talking about the first 2 books is because those were my favorite. The other 4 books were pretty good, but nothing hit like these first 2 books. Again, I'm trying to change that, why no one's talking about this series, but it's so incredibly good. So good. Like, from the first page, I remember I was shook. Just the first page. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I hope you picked this up because I need more people to talk to about this series. It's been a while since I've read it and still no one has read it, so yeah, definitely pick them up. This one is a kind of similar series in the sense that each book follows a different character within the same friend group, but this is way more popular than the last series I mentioned, and this one is the Off-Campus series by L. Kennedy. If you're among the group of romance readers, you would not be a stranger to this series, or you would have at least heard of this series. And I just love that series so much. It's a sports romance, which I typically have not really read a lot of, but I remember because the series did it so well, I was like, why bother reading anything else? Because this series was so incredibly good. Like I mentioned, there's 4 books in this series, and each book follows a different guy within the same friends who are all hockey players on the college's hockey team. As the books go on, you see the respective couples from the previous books kind of featured within those books, so that's what I really like, just seeing the budding romance, budding relationship, and then once they've been established, you see like little bits of them happy couples in the other books, and I just love that. I want to read more books similar to that. It's just like a classic romance series that I read back in the day that I just associate with good memories. Again, each book has something for everyone. The first book, it's like classmates, but a girl has to tutor the guy in order for him to have good grades enough to keep playing, and then that just kind of like grows into its own thing. And then the second one is strangers to friends to lovers. That book has a special place in my heart for just reasons. I don't want to spoil anything. But the third one is Friends with Benefits, that had arguably the best character development of that entire series. And the fourth one is my least favorite just because it has a trope that I absolutely despise, which is unexpected pregnancy. It's not my jam, it's not my thing. Some people like it, so again, this series has something for everyone in each of the books. It's just a classic, it's a staple. This one, again, if you're a group of romance readers out there, you will not be a stranger to this series, and that's the Dark Olympus series by Katie Robert. I've read Neon Gods and Electric Idol. Neon Gods is a classic retelling of Hades and Persephone, and Electric Idol is featuring Psyche and Eros. The first book is just, again, classic enemies to lovers romance. If you're familiar with the Hades and Persephone myth, then that's pretty much the direction that book goes in. And the second book is Marriage of Convenience, enemies to lovers as well. I had a fun time. I read these books for like a messy fun time, and they delivered, and that's why I enjoyed them so much, and I'm so looking forward to Wicked Beauty. It's her first poly romance within this universe. I'm so excited. I have heard really good things so far, so I cannot wait to get my hands on that book. I just know it's gonna feed me so well, and I'm so excited. Another book from Miss Katie Robert is Gifting Me to His Best Friend. That's pretty self-explanatory of what happens in that book. And again, it's a relatively short book, so you definitely could finish it in one sitting. Again, a messy fun time, emphasis on fun time, emphasis on messy, and just, I don't know what else to tell you. The title's pretty self-explanatory, so proceed with caution. That's all I can say about that book. And again, kind of like proceed with caution. I kind of like laughed at the content warnings just because the content warning of this book included clowns, and I just like died laughing for a good like 5 minutes because that was just something I was not expecting to see. It was definitely a choice. It's not throughout the whole book. It's maybe like 2 pages, which again, why are there 2 pages about clowns in a smut book? It was a costume party. Okay, so that's the context I will give you. But this is The Dare by Harley LaRue. Again, another short book. If you want a messy fun time, this was definitely a messy fun time, but also read the trigger warnings because there were many, and not including the clowns, I'm sorry. But there's gonna be a sequel coming out for this book, and I am embarrassed to say, actually not embarrassed, 2022, we're practicing self-love, you know? So I'm excited for the second book. I don't know what else to tell you. But this also features popular girl, secluded gamer emo boy. I'll leave you with that. Finally, the spiciest of all these books is Lola and the Millionaires by Catherine Moon. Miss Catherine Moon knew what she was doing, because I never in a million years would have expected me to read these books, let alone eat them up like I did. I finished both books in like 3 days, and those books are chunky. They're not a short read, but I ate them up regardless. I do not regret 1 minute reading those books. It's a poly romance. It truly gave. It was a whole feast. I ate so well, and I would not have expected from a poly omegaverse smutty romance, for there to be great character development. I mean, I'm telling you, it's like a balance of like everything, and it had plot as well, which there's nothing wrong with having smut and low plot because there's a time and place, you know. But this one, yeah, it had the plot, it had character development, great healthy romances. Check the trigger warnings for this book, but I definitely will say the character development and the emphasis on healthy coping mechanisms you would not have expected from this book, but it did, it gave, and that's why like I gave both books I think 5 stars, just because there is not a single flaw with those books. So I will definitely recommend that book. That was one of my biggest surprises of last year, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So I would definitely recommend if you're looking for something out of your comfort zone, but also delivers such a great time and such good content. Look no further. So that kind of wraps up my favorite romances I have ever read. This is not the end of my romance era. I'm still going to continue reading romances this year. I don't see that ever stopping for me. But again, this was just something I wanted to do, very self-indulgent, serotonin filled, because I love reading romances and I just want to share that love with everyone and just persuade people to read these books because they're just such a fun time. Again, every single one of these books had me kicking, screaming, giggling, screaming, crying, throwing up in the best way. I will leave you with that. Again, thank you for sticking around. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. And if you want to keep seeing content from me, which I hope you would, I would appreciate having you here. Yeah, so until next time, I'll see you later. Bye!